In the spring of 1989, a man from Las Vegas was interviewed by local TV reporter George Knapp and said something no one had said before publicly. Not just that UFOs were real, but that he had worked on one. His name was Bob Lazar. He claimed that he had been hired by the United States Navy to reverse engineer the propulsion system of an extraterrestrial craft. He claimed that the U.S. government was holding 9 alien craft in a facility called S4, south of a classified airbase in the Nevada desert that the government at that time officially denied existed. A base known by its Atomic Energy Commission grid designation as Area 51. A name that had appeared in local Nevada press since the 1950s, but whose association with aliens had only crystallized in public consciousness months earlier through a syndicated broadcast called UFO Cover-Up Live. The government would not acknowledge Area 51 as real for another 24 years. This is the CircleJerk. I'm your host, James Carrion. And in this episode, we are going to lay out exactly what Bob Lazar claimed, without editorial interference, without dismissal, and without credulity. We are going to treat this the way an intelligence analyst treats a raw source report, as data that requires evaluation, not a story that requires a verdict. Because that's what this show is about. Not belief, not debunking, investigation. Let me give you the Lazar narrative the way Lazar gave it, uninterrupted, in Lazar's own words, sourced directly from several Lazar interviews. I am not editorializing. I am not inserting skepticism. You will get your chance to evaluate this. For now, please listen. Lazar claims he was referred into the program by Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb. Lazar met Teller at a Los Alamos lecture in 1982. Years later, he sent Teller his resume. Teller called back and gave him a contact name at government contractor EG&G. That referral, Lazar says, led to his employment at S4, a classified facility 15 miles south of Groom Lake, also known as Area 51. Accessible only by flying from Las Vegas McCarran's restricted terminal and riding a bus with blacked-out windows to the Papoose dry lake bed. There, under Project Galileo, he was assigned to reverse engineer one of 9 recovered extraterrestrial craft. Lazar describes S4 as a facility built into a hillside, with hangars whose doors were angled to match the slope of the mountain. Desert camouflaged, not invisible, just designed so that you wouldn't notice it unless you already knew what you were looking at. The 9 hangars were connected in a row, and inside each one was a craft, each different in size and shape. Lazar gave them nicknames: the Sport Model, the Top Hat, the Jello Mold. His assigned craft was the Sport Model, a disc 35 to 40 feet across and 15 feet high, with no seams, welds, bolts, or rivets. It looked injection molded. No landing gear. Inside, no right angles anywhere. Every surface a smooth curve, and seats far too small for an average adult human. That detail hit him, and was the first confirmation they were not built by or for human occupants. Throughout the facility were posters, commercial-looking, lithographed, depicting the Sport Model hovering about 3 feet above the dry lake with the caption, "They're here." Lazar says these posters were all over the place. The Sport Model, Lazar noted, looked amazingly like the craft in photographs taken by Swiss contactee Edward Billy Meyer. Lazar's job at S4 was not to understand the craft. His job was much narrower. He was part of a team tasked with understanding the propulsion system, specifically an antimatter reactor that he says ran on a stable isotope of a then unknown element called element 115. The reactor, Lazar explains, works by bombarding element 115 with protons, causing a reaction that produces a gravity wave, specifically what he calls a gravity A wave, a subnuclear gravitational force. The craft amplifies this wave, shapes it, and uses it to distort space-time around itself, effectively moving the destination to the craft rather than moving the craft to the destination. Lazar says he worked at S4 for several months. He said he read briefing documents describing the craft's origin, documents that referred to their builders as being from the Zeta Reticuli star system. He says he witnessed the sport model conduct test flights on at least 3 consecutive Wednesday nights in March of 1989. He didn't observe these up close. Instead, Lazar watched from the desert near Papoose Lake with a group that included his wife Tracy, his sister-in-law, and acquaintances John Lear and Gene Huff. John Lear, the son of Bill Lear, the man who designed the Learjet. It was Lear who had introduced Lazar to George Knapp. The group were caught on the third desert observation night by Area 51 security guards on Bureau of Land Management land surrounding Area 51. The following day, Lazar was ordered to report to Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Unit, now known as Creech Air Force Base, approximately 30 miles northwest of Las Vegas, for a debriefing by an FBI agent. Lazar told George Knapp what happened there. Someone put a gun to his head and said words to the effect of, "We have the power to kill you right now. No one's going to know about it. We can come up with 1,000 excuses." After leaving the program, Lazar says his security clearance was revoked and threatening phone calls followed. After his first TV broadcast, a car pulled alongside him on Interstate 15 and fired a shot at his tire. However, the verbal and physical threats were not the catalyst for Lazar going public. What actually motivated him to go public was simpler. He requested his birth certificate and was told it didn't exist. He checked previous jobs in schools, and that information was also gone. He concluded someone was about to disappear him. I want to stop here and explain why the Lazar case is different from most UFO testimony, because we are going to spend a lot of time on this show evaluating claims, and I need you to understand why this one gets 4 episodes instead of 1. Most UFO witness accounts have what analysts call low diagnostic value. A farmer in Iowa sees a light in the sky. A pilot tracks an unknown radar return. A Navy aviator describes a white tic-tac that can hold position against a 40-knot wind. These accounts are compelling. Some of them are genuinely difficult to explain, but they don't give you anything to grab onto. There are no verifiable technical claims. There is no falsifiable physics. There is nothing that can be checked. Lazar is different because he made specific claims, specific enough to be wrong. And that is actually what makes him analytically interesting. He named an element that didn't exist. He described a propulsion concept that was ahead of its time. He identified a workplace, S4, that the government has never acknowledged. He produced a W-2 form bearing the employer name United States Department of Naval Intelligence. He described internal details of the Area 51 complex, the cafeteria, the bus routes, the security protocols. He also failed to produce his academic credentials. He also had a criminal record for operating an illegal brothel, which he has never denied. This is not a clean story. It is not supposed to be a clean story. It is a structured analytical problem, and we are going to work it like one. Before we can evaluate any evidence, you need to understand the tool we're going to use to do it. It's called analysis of competing hypotheses, and it was developed by a CIA analyst named Richard Hoyer in the 1970s. Hoyer spent his career studying how intelligence analysts make mistakes, how smart, experienced, well-intentioned people look at ambiguous data and consistently draw wrong conclusions. And what he found was that the most common failure mode isn't stupidity, it's confirmation bias. Analysts tend to ask, does this evidence support my hypothesis? ACH forces you to ask a different question. Does this evidence contradict any of my hypotheses? The difference sounds subtle. It is not subtle. It completely changes how you weight evidence. Here's how it works. You start by identifying all the competing hypotheses, not just the one you find most plausible, but every explanation that cannot be immediately ruled out. Then you list all the relevant evidence. Then you build a matrix, hypotheses across the top, evidence down the side. And for each cell you ask, is this evidence consistent with this hypothesis? Or is it inconsistent? Or is it simply not diagnostic, meaning it doesn't help you discriminate between the hypotheses at all? The goal is not to find the hypothesis that fits the evidence. The goal is to find the hypothesis that is least contradicted by the evidence. Those are not the same thing. And that distinction matters enormously when you're dealing with a case like this one, where the evidence base is contaminated by motivated reasoning on both sides. So let's build our matrix. For the Lazar case, I see three hypotheses that cannot be immediately ruled out. There may be others. If you think I've missed one, please tell me. But these three cover the plausible explanatory space. Hypothesis 1. Lazar is a genuine whistleblower. He was employed at S4. He had access to classified technology of non-human origin. His account is substantially accurate. His credential problems are the result of deliberate erasure by the government agencies that employed him. Hypothesis 2. Lazar fabricated the story. He is a technically literate individual who constructed a coherent narrative from available aerospace and physics literature, from other UFO accounts he had access to, and from his genuine employment at or near Area 51 in some capacity, perhaps legitimate, perhaps peripheral. The technical details that later proved accurate were informed guesses or coincidences. His credential problems are because his credentials are largely fabricated. Hypothesis 3. Lazar was used wittingly or unwittingly in a disinformation operation. He had genuine access to something at Area 51, classified aerospace technology, exotic experimental aircraft, something real, and the UFO narrative was either fed to him or constructed around him or elaborated by him from partial and possibly misleading exposure. His account may be simultaneously true and false in ways that are very difficult to untangle. The extraterrestrial origin story may be what he was told, not what is true. Three hypotheses that we will dissect using the analysis of competing hypotheses method. In the next episode, the credentials problem, the single most contested question in the Lazar case. Who exactly is this man? I'm your host, James Carrion. This is the Circle Jerk. We don't tell you what to believe, we show you how to think.